All right, folks, I'm going to make sure that we have a signal here before I start going on with what's going to be a very controversial discussion. All right. You know, for 8 years, I had to endure the socialist engineered collapse of the economy and the utter destruction of the moral fabric of what was left of our once great society. And now I've got to sit here and scratch my head until all my hair falls out, wondering when the man who made all these promises in the suit with the American red, white, and blue tie, that all of the predictive programming in the cartoons told us was going to become the president, Mr. Donald Trump, when he was going to deliver on all these things he said he was going to do. For those of you who don't know, yesterday was September 11th, ladies and gentlemen. And we all know what happened on September 11th in 2001. 3 buildings in New York City were destroyed via controlled demolition. And we were shown some pictures and given stories about how those buildings came down. But none of it makes any sense. And 17 years later, I thought we were going to get some answers. Because I remember Donald Trump saying repeatedly that once he's elected, we're going to get to the bottom of 9/11. Well, yesterday was September 11th of 2018, and Donald Trump was in the White House, and he gave a speech. And it sounded like the same speech Obama gave, and the same speech Obama gave, and the same speech Obama gave for 8 years in a row, and before that, the same speech that Bush gave. And it's the same speech, ladies and gentlemen. It's the same song and dance. No one's talking about the obvious, and no one is talking about the tragedy that has unfolded. And that is the $7 trillion and the millions of people who have died as a result of those controlled demolitions. That's a fact, ladies and gentlemen. This country has gone to war for 17 years against God knows who, for God knows why. Donald Trump told us he was going to get to the bottom of 9/11. Donald Trump has yet to deliver on that promise. And look, ladies and gentlemen, before any of you say, why are you so hard on Donald Trump? Why aren't you complaining about Hillary? Why aren't you complaining about Obama? Well, I did for years. And Hillary had no chance of winning. It was all kabuki theater to get you to accept their Manchurian candidate that has an R after his name this time around instead of a D. It's all a big game, folks. And he made a bunch of promises and got a bunch of people excited. And he gave a bunch of tax cuts to a bunch of corporations so they can put machines in the lobby to get rid of your job, so they can invest in more technology to further reduce their dependence on human beings. Because that's what these companies are doing. They're spending all this extra profit on more stock options for the CEOs and more automation to lower their bottom line. It's the way the world is going. But when someone makes promises, I expect them to deliver. Now, what else has Donald Trump promised to do? Well, the one promise he did make, he certainly carried through. And that is to move the Israeli embassy to Jerusalem. in violation of the 1948 agreement, in direct violation of that 1948 agreement. And Mr. Edelstein spent about $25 million on his campaign to get his wish to become his command, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, Donald Trump's largest campaign donor had a dream, ladies and gentlemen, and that is to move the embassy to Jerusalem. That's the one promise Trump kept. Now, Donald Trump also worked up a tax code revision that actually has taken the tax deductions away from millions of middle-class Americans to where they're going to be paying more money in taxes than they ever did before. Is that how we make America great again? By chopping the tax to the corporations and making the middle-class people pay for it? Well, that's what Donald Trump has done, ladies and gentlemen. How do I know this? How many CPAs do you think I have connections to? How many people do you think I've actually sat down and talked to about this? More than one. Ladies and gentlemen, what else has Donald Trump promised us? And no, I'm not here to talk about Obama. We threw him out. You guys have had enough of the free cell phone giveaways and the freebies and the bailouts for all the people that want to stay home and watch Oprah and microwave your Hot Pockets and get your free Obama phones and everything else. You didn't get your student loans forgiven. You didn't get anything but more of the shaft and more of unemployment because you were stupid enough to believe that you can get something for nothing. And there's no such thing as a free lunch. And you ask any tuna swimming around in the Pacific Ocean when it sees a long line full of chunk bait if there's a free lunch once that hook's in its jaw. Because there is no such thing as a free lunch unless there's a hook in it, folks. And there's a hook in everything that they tell you is free. And there's always a high cost to something that they say is cheap. And there's always an arduous price to pay for something that they tell you is easy. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we were told that Donald Trump was going to build the wall. And you know what Donald Trump has done? He's given us a national ID card where everybody has to have one by 2020 or they can't get on an airplane. Now, whatever happened to the right to freely travel in our country, folks? It's gone. Donald Trump said he's going to build a wall for what? To keep people out? Then why is it that state after state, county after county, city after city passes resolutions to thumb their nose at federal immigration law, and they use our tax money to refuse to enforce federal immigration law? And why has Donald Trump done absolutely nothing about this problem? He promised he was going to do something about the immigration invasion that's taking place. But he's done absolutely no such thing, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump said he was going to make America great again by improving our economy. But what Donald Trump has actually done is by rigging the tax code, he has turned the stock market into the high roller room at the Bellagio for those people who can play with $1,000 chips. Because the people that can afford to play the stock market now are the ones that got the huge tax cut and have millions of dollars to play with. While they tightened up the machines where the quarters and the dollars go in for people like us, they've loosened up the tables and the odds in the Baccarat room for the high rollers. Folks, I'm making an analogy because that's what he's done. You think the economy is improving under Donald Trump? Well, the economy is improving because of economic conditions that were well underway. And now the economy is improving for the elite and the wealthy and is declining for the average worker. Now, granted, there are some businesses that are coming back. There's some manufacturing jobs coming back, a couple hundred here and a couple hundred there. But since when is the last time you saw a stapler, a TV set, a cell phone, a coffee maker, a toaster, a wrench, a vise, a set of vice grips, a light bulb, a lamp, a calculator, a pencil, a pen, a hole punch, a medical device made in USA? Nothing! Nothing, folks. And although Trump has promised to repeal some of these trade deals, all he has done is relabel them and change the lines around in the wording. The net result, the same thing. So why is it that people continue to accept all of these broken promises? Well, it is a form of psychological warfare that is being waged on you that has made people out like me to be an iconoclast who dares to question and to criticize the Savior. That's right. For years, I attended rallies where I almost got my ass kicked by a bunch of illegal aliens who wanted to beat me up because I dared to raise an American flag to stand up for this nation. What has Donald Trump done for me? He has promised that 5G transmitters are going to come into my backyard. That's right. He has taken away my tax deductions, increasing my tax liability. He has sat back while the vaccine laws get stronger and stricter and ensnare and encompass a wider cross-section of our population. He has sat back and laid the groundwork for World War III in the Middle East. He has sat back and gave us a promise to build a wall that's actually designed to keep us in. The invasion from Mexico continues. There has been absolutely no slowdown. Now, there was a period of time where people got scared after he got elected, but once they realized that Trump was nothing but a paper tiger when it came to his campaign promises, guess what happened? The invasion continued. The school district classrooms filled back up with the illegal aliens kids. Business as usual, folks. And what did Donald Trump do? He cut basic aid to the poorest among us while doing not a damn thing about illegal aliens receiving benefits, while cutting off American citizens from food stamps and welfare. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Think about that for a minute. This guy has played you all for a fool. And until he lives up to even one of his campaign promises that seeks to increase the quality of our life, I may be just fine with him being impeached or thrown out of office at this point. Because quite frankly, he's done nothing but make things worse. Would we have been better under Hillary? No. It would be the same mess. Our taxes have still gone up. The foreign policy decisions that have been made would still be the same under her. Oh, maybe she may have given a little bit more money for the abortions. Okay. Maybe things would be a little bit more progressive in the media. Okay. But I can tell you this. Whether it's Slick Willie or the grandson of Aleister Crowley, or whether it's the former CIA director, or whether it's Barry Soetoro with the fake birth certificate, or whether it's the King of Manhattan that's got a bunch of gargoyles in his gold-plated apartment. It doesn't matter, folks, because we're all being conned. You want to know something? You're all going along with it. You know, there's these obelisks on top of these churches and in these public areas, and on these government monuments and in places all over the world. I've mentioned that the obelisk in the Vatican, all roads lead to Rome. The obelisk in Washington, D.C., all roads lead to Washington, D.C., the District of Criminals. The obelisk in front of the Israeli Supreme Court, all roads lead to Israel. And, of course, the obelisk in London, all roads lead to London. Those are the players, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the big players. And guess who Trump serves? All of them. You think he serves us? Really? Why do you raise my taxes and take away my tax deductions? And why did he cut the taxes for the corporations without any conditions? Because anybody that gets a huge tax break that owns a business is just going to buy more computers to replace everybody. Because that's what's going on. You've been to a fast food restaurant lately? You see the kiosks going in to Starbucks and McDonald's? While all the jobs go to the illegal aliens, what has he done about that? Nothing. What has he done about the proliferation of all these dangerous wireless systems and these cell towers and these 5G systems that are going in everywhere? He funded it, folks. He gave $80 billion to put 5G in rural areas of the United States so everybody gets to get poisoned by this stuff. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I'm not yelling right now. Because I'm just going to tell it like it is without any fanfare, folks. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty sick of it. And, you know, all these investigations, all these supposed indictments, all these promises of making America great again, all he's done is catered to the Rush Limbaugh crowd, who's already fat, dumb, and happy enough. Now they've just got a few more zeros in their bank accounts. While the rest of the American people have to find a third job to make ends meet, as they're competing with foreign money that's commoditizing the housing market, that's outpricing and outstripping Americans' abilities to own a place to live. While the importation of cheap goods continues to proliferate and drive whatever industries are left here out of business, unless you're a wholesaler of these junk devices. And we have states like California that sign on to these Agenda 21 climate accords that he rejects, but he lets the states do it. Wait a minute. How is it that he lets the states get away with establishing sanctuary states where rapists and murderers and kidnappers and torturers and criminals and thieves, child molesters from foreign countries with fake IDs can come here and get a bunch of free shit? Huh? How's that possible that he's not doing anything about that? Why isn't he deporting all these people at the DMV with their matricula cards? Why? Because he's part of the same agenda going on in other nations where they flood the country with immigrants to lower the standard of living, to water down the vote, and to deplete the power of the native peoples and the citizenry. And what that does folks, is it turns our vote into toilet paper, and it continues the march towards more socialism, folks, to guarantee that the person he replaced gets to replace him for 8 more years. And with any luck, your kids won't come home in a body bag from another Gulf War on steroids this time. That's a fact, folks. You know, I don't understand how steel frame buildings have been in existence for over 100 years. And there was only one time in those 100-year history in the world where steel frame buildings collapsed because they caught on fire. And it just so happened to be on the same day, and the buildings happened to be leased by the same guy. And that guy was Mr. Larry Silverstein on 9/11. That's right, folks. The only time steel frame buildings ever collapsed because of catching them on fire In history, it happened 3 times. All in one day, all in succession, on September 11, 2001. And it just so happened those 3 buildings were leased by Larry Silverstein, who weeks before took out record insurance policies on those buildings and purchased a terrorism endorsement for those policies. You would be hard-pressed to find any buildings in New York City being insured for terrorism prior to that date. I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that you need to open your eyes. I thought Donald Trump was going to get to the bottom of 9/11. Well, I watched his speech yesterday. The truth of the matter to their death. And so have our troops been marched off to their death as they come home to get mistreated by the VA, to live under the bridge, to live at the riverbed, to sleep in the park. And what lies ahead should be of even greater concern to all of you. How is it that we have a president that promised to get to the bottom of 9/11 when I just got to the bottom of 9/11 and I'm just a schmuck with a YouTube channel? How is it that we can let Mr. Trump continue to break all of his promises as he marches the United States off to war in the Middle East? I'm not going to stand for it, and neither should any of you. We know what this nation needs to do. We know this nation needs to deport all of the illegal aliens and secure our borders. What has Trump done? Obama deported more illegal aliens than the Trump administration has, based on the amount of time in office that Trump has been in office, proportionate to the Obama administration. There were more deportations and ICE activity in a couple of years of the Obama administration than there's been with the Trump administration. Talk is cheap and the tongue is boneless, Mr. Trump. When is Mr. Trump going to renounce his 33rd degree Masonry level membership and proclaim his allegiance to Jesus Christ? Now we know degree Mason, folks. We also know he has high-level Jesuit connections. We know these things. And look at the cabinet level positions and who he's surrounded by. Look where this is all leading, ladies and gentlemen. You need to keep your eyes focused on Iran because they're setting up World War III. Did Trump ever promise to take us to war, ladies and gentlemen? Did Donald Trump ever say that he was going to reinstate the draft? Are those part of his campaign promises? Do you know what's going to happen if we're brought into a ground war in the Middle East with Iran? Do you know how many people it's going to take to fight that war? And do you know how many of your boys and girls are going to get taken out of your homes and forced to go over there? Did Donald Trump promise us that? What did Donald Trump promise us, ladies and gentlemen? He said he was going to make America great again. You know how you make America great again? You make its people free and strong and powerful and economically empowered. And you know how you do that? You focus on their health. You repeal all these mandatory vaccination laws. You demand that vaccine manufacturers have their products tested for impairment of fertility, mutagenic potential, and carcinogenic potential, which none of them have, and none of them are being forced to do to this day as we speak. To make America great again, you've got to invert the food pyramid and turn it upside down. He's not done that. What has he done? Nothing about that. It is widely known that that food pyramid is a recipe for disasters, in terms of health outcomes. It was invented by the cereal companies to kill everybody, and it's working. How do you make America great again? You make America healthy. You make America proud. And you deport people that don't belong here, and you empower people that do. You have a strong nationalist policy that supports the people that have contributed to this country. You don't throw them to the gutter like is being done with our youth, as the illegal aliens displace all of the jobs for the entry-level workers in our economy. And you don't give tax breaks to corporations that spend more money on automation than they do on 401k matching contributions. Human beings have value, ladies and gentlemen. And how you make America great again is you value human beings. And when you value human beings, you don't lie to them. You tell them the truth. And you do what you can to protect them. You strengthen things like the Second Amendment so people are freer and more empowered to protect themselves against tyrannical advances from its own government, domestic disturbances and unrest, and to be secure in their homes and their possessions. That's how you make America great again. You don't make promises and do just the opposite. You can't make America great again by irradiating the entire nation and putting dangerous millimeter wave systems to surveil and cook us all over the continental United States, even in the rural areas. As a matter of fact, you halt the deployment and you demand studies be made public that the military has had hidden for decades. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. And you certainly do not create a national ID, which is the epitome of the Big Brother system. It flies in the face of the spirit of the American ideology of rugged individualism and liberty, and the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. But no, the ID 2020 is all about forced vaccination and compliance. And that's what's going on, folks. If you make America great again, you would demand that the weather modification that is wreaking havoc on our weather, that is desiccating and decimating the West Coast and flooding the rest of the country, would be brought to an end. It's not hard to do that. You just sign an executive order banning all weather modification activities and shut down all these phased array radar installations that are involved in it. They're all government entities. And finally, if you want to make America great again, you know what you do? You lead the nation back to Jesus Christ. Because he's our only hope, folks. He's the light of the world. He's the way, the truth, and the life. He is the door. He's the only begotten Son of the Father. And he's the only atonement for our sins. You know, I'm looking at the sun right in my face. I'm heading due west. And it's bright and beautiful, folks. And I want to tell you something. There's going to come a time when we're going to face the light of the world. How are you going to answer when you're asked? What are you going to say? What was your contribution? I can tell you right now, folks. If you're like me, you're going to want to hear the following statement. Well done, good and faithful servant. Come and inherit the rest of the Lord that has been prepared for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is not who you think he is. Spread the news on this channel. Subscribe to the Fullerton Informer YouTube channel. Go to thefullertoninformer.com, wifidangers.com. Get the word out on what's being done to everybody. And stop the Trump worship, folks. Stop it. Open your eyes. Demand better, because we deserve it. God bless all of you. Amen.